Which answer do you want?
Recording in progress.
Nobody wants the front row. You know how it is.
Before
No.
we get started, a couple things. First, I want to thank everybody here, particularly you guys that are in this room. I know this year wasn't quite back to normal, but it was a lot more normal than we had the year before. So I appreciate everybody's cooperation with the protocols and everybody making the efforts to be here as often as you were. It's much appreciated by all of us, our staff, so thank you. Secondly, I'd ask that you all please join me in wishing Aaron Portsline a happy birthday. Yes, absolutely. We won't sing. I offered, he declined, so he will get the first question.
No, we won't. Is your birthday today?
It is.
It's my daughter's birthday today.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. She's younger than you, yeah. A little bit. Just by a bit, yes. It's a great day.
Lars, this was by, I think, most people's measure, a successful season for you. Close to 500, but many people didn't think it would be that. Does it get, what is it now for you? What's next for you with this group? How big is the challenge now to go to the next level? Opportunity abounded this year. Is it different next year and where people are more set in roles? You have a better idea of some of these guys, or how do you look at the next stage here?
Yeah, well, I have a very good feel for our group right now. But it's almost like when I took the job at the beginning here back in June, when you're asking expectations and what are we going to look like, I said, I don't know. You know, there's going to be change. There always is change. And it's the NHL. Very rare do you come in with the exact same group. Now, how big that change is going to be, I'm not sure. We know we want to get better. We know we got to add certain areas. You know, I think this year was huge as far as growth, opportunity. We talked about that a lot. Development, culture, all those things that we wanted to make sure was in place. And there was a lot of learning curves for a lot of guys, for our leadership group. They had a new staff. You know, even though I was here, I was in a new role. And they have 2 new assistants. And so you start putting all these things together and yeah, I have a very good idea of what we are, who we are. I have a lot of thoughts on where I'd like to grow to, where I'd like to add. But what you want and what you can get are 2 different things. And so this is going to be the ongoing conversation process here as we go into the summer.
Brad, how big is the core of this team? Because it seems to me from afar, there are more like-minded players. And it seemed to come out in the interviews on the weekend, how they talked about, this is the best room I've ever been in. Has that made it easier in the transition? And is that 4 or 6 guys, or now is it 10, 12, 15 guys that are pulling together?
You look at the change coming into the season, and you're not sure what the chemistry is going to be like. What we subtracted, right? You lose the leadership qualities of the Felinos, you know, Seth Jones, Savard, even a guy like Delzato, who is a 700-plus game type guy. You know, Cam Atkinson, another guy. So, and you introduce some guys, the leadership roles. So, you're not sure how the room's going to be. You really don't. And us as a staff, we were watching that very closely. You know, I think that was something. How are these guys going to gel? What's it going to look like? How are the leaders going to do? How do we help them? And you could see it. You could see it early on. We got to a good start. You know, I've had many questions, like any surprises. You know, it was unexpected, and you know that was the surprise. That if there's one thing, when we started 12-6, to me that was the surprise, a good surprise, but that was the unexpected right away. So then, how do you handle success? You know, and being a real young team, and how are the leaders going to handle that? So, as far as the number of what that core looks like, I think we could pick some key guys out real easily and go that's core. And then there's maybe some tweeners, you know, where are they at? But so I can't give you that number of how many guys will be back. What are we looking to do? Because in the NHL and you know, we're going to go back as a staff. We're going to talk with management. They have a plan in place. We're going to talk about, you know, our thoughts. They'll get our ideas, and then they're going to try and build a team to get better. So sometimes there's unexpected trades. And nobody thought Cam would get traded, and that happened very quickly. And so, and all in the thoughts of trying to better the team and move forward and improve. And so, the hard part about this business is that room, they really cared about each other. You could feel it. And as the season went along and as we went through, the downs, and that's when you really find out about your group, how they handled themselves in the struggles. And these guys really pulled together. Not that we got the wins that we wanted, but how they carried themselves together, how they did pull the rope together. Practice habits, the push. You look at the growth in a lot of our players this year, it was tremendous, I thought. But there's still a long ways to go. You look at the improvement that's going to be required. You look at the teams that are in this year. We have to get better. We have to. And that might mean losing losing some of these real key core guys. You never know. And so I don't have a crystal ball. I'm not going to play GM. I'm going to coach the team that they give me. They ask questions. I'm going to give them my honest opinion, and we'll see where that ends up. So around probably late July, we'll have a pretty good idea of what we're going to look like.
Along those lines, I guess we'll go with Patrick Laine is a pending free agent. We know that's not your area of expertise to bring him back or anything like that. But if he were to be here, long term, how much would you enjoy that as far as him being part of that kind of core group?
Yeah, the first thing about Patrick, he's a special player. These guys don't come around very often. He's got an ability to score at a very elite level. We saw it this year. We got a taste of that. The thing I loved about Patty was his commitment to the team. How he had a purpose to try and change. He had a real want. How he integrated with his teammates. We all know the year before didn't go as planned for him, for our group, everybody. There was a very dark cloud around the organization, just the feel of it, right? So, and I think Patty felt that. I think, we all want these guys to come in and have an instant impact, and I'm sure nobody wanted that more than Patrick. So when it doesn't go your way, we forget that he was 22. We forget that he's never gone through statistical disappointment like that. When he joined Winnipeg, they had a pretty good core, good team, and he was able to integrate and not have to be the guy. So you look at him and his growth, and he's a guy that grew a ton for me, and not just in the goals. It wasn't the 19 goals in 22 games. That's great. We need it. We want it. But his commitment was very evident. And to me, there's still so much more room to grow for him in a real positive way. At 24 years old, you look at him and where his game could end up, because he's not even close to being in his prime for me. So, as a coach, that excites you. You see a guy like that, he's 6'5", can score you, in an 82-game schedule, he's on pace for just under 40. And you see that he's putting the work, and you see that he's integrating with his teammates better. You see that he made change. Change requires change. And if you don't change, nothing happens. So he made a very conscious effort to change in a lot of different areas of his life, while going through a tremendous tragedy in his life too. We forget about that, the human element of what he just went through, losing his father, who was very important in his life. So he's a guy that I think he excites a lot of people, not just me, management, staff, I think the city. And, judging by my exit interview with him, he really likes Columbus. So we'll see where it goes.
Brett, how have you handled or developed yourself in letting young players play through mistakes while also balancing the fact that you need to win games?
Yeah, it's tricky, right? I don't like the word handled, but how do we grow into that? What's that line? How do we, and I think every guy's different in that line and what that looks like. You could go through a long list of guys where the Jack Roslovics to the Bjorkstrands to the Werenskis to Cole Sillinger, who's 18. Like, what is that line? How do you free them up to be the best player they can, but make sure they're staying within the foundation, the structure, the commitment to competitiveness and what that looks like. And handled, I don't know how we handle it. I think how we're growing into that, I think that's still in progress right now. I think there was tremendous strides from a lot of our players in their offensive games. I think if you asked our players, you know, how I was coaching them and more importantly, our staff was coaching them, I was very vocal about, you can make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. It's a game of mistakes. But we're going to coach you through some of this, and there's some boundaries you can't cross, and if it goes too far, then it's going to cost you ice time. And I think individually they figured that out, what that line looked like. They're smart enough to understand some guys get more rope than others. I don't think I have to coach that. I think they know if a guy's got 1,000 games in the league, his rope's probably a little bit longer with 800 points. And it's Jake Voracek, if you don't know. Those guys get more rope, but they've earned that rope. You know, they've earned that opportunity to, and that doesn't mean I'm not coaching him too, because I do. We have great conversations about that and trying to grow his game. So that's a work in progress. We're a young team, and we're going to continue to grow in that, and they're going to get to know me better. I'm going to get to understand them better, how to coach them better, how to push them. And that's really the exciting part of this journey right now.
Brad, one of the unknowns going into the year was a head coach. What did you learn in your first year? I don't want you to assess it, but what was that first year like for you? And I'm also curious if you reached out to any of your mentors, specifically the guy you worked with here for a long time as a head coach.
Yeah, you're spot on. I'm not going to assess that's not my place to assess my job or what I did. It was awesome. I loved it. I was so blessed to be able to coach and be part of a staff that got to coach a group like that really truly cared for each other. Yes, I reached out to several guys, and not just in the sport. I've been very fortunate to meet some head coaches that had success in different sports and talk to them, how they handled situations when they were done, when they got fired, what it looked like. The struggles they went through early on in their career. I think it's important not just to stay in your own sport if you can. And I was very, very fortunate to meet some guys that I have a tremendous amount of respect for and have conversations and some FaceTime with them, you know, talk to them about that. So, yeah, I talk with Torts, absolutely. He's a guy, first and foremost, he's a dear friend of mine for the rest of my life. You know, I separate hockey. He's a tremendous human being, but he has a ton of experience too. So yes, I would check in and pick his brain. You know, I think one thing I've learned in this game is be humble. I don't have all the answers. I'm going to make mistakes, but to grow, I think you need to ask questions. I think you need to lean on guys that have been around the game, and you know, that's why I hired Craig Hartsburg. To be honest with you, that was a guy that his name came up early in the process, and I was excited to add him to our staff because he's got a tremendous amount of experience. We've had some awesome meetings as a staff with him and him giving his thoughts. So, you know, every year you talk to the Barry Trotzes of the world that have won and been around forever, or the Mike Babcocks, or, you know, any of these guys with success, they're always trying to grow. You know, as soon as you flatline and get stagnant, you fall behind. And these aren't, there's no gimmicks to it. I said it when I took this job, there's no substitute for experience. There's just not. And so I just finished my 25th year of pro hockey. You know, I'm 44 years old, turning 45 here in June. Still a very young man, Portsy. And so it's another year of experience for me. And we went through things. And some things I expected, some things I didn't. But I'm going to sure try and grow from it. I'm going to reach out and have conversations and, you know, just meet with my staff, you know, get thoughts, things we want to possibly change, what we want to look like. What do we want to look like as an organization, as a team, our foundation? Were we happy with that? These are conversations we have constantly. So it was a incredible year. It was. And take out the wins and losses. You know, we all want to do better. We all want to be playing today. This is the day. I don't want to be doing this. I'd rather be doing this, telling you who's in my lineup, who's starting, but we're not. And that's where we want to grow to. That's where we need to get to. But I'm excited about the future. I am. I think we have some really good players in there. But we have some tremendous people, which I'm excited about.
Some of the veteran guys that we talked to on Saturday said that maybe the next step is the hardest one. Things like expectations come into play. These things don't always go in straight lines, things like that. In your experience, is that something that is true, that you can have these young players kind of play well when the pressure's off, but as these things build, it can be a real tough thing to make that next step?
Yeah, I think, there was tremendous growth, even in basically a 500 season, as far as wins, losses, and win percentage. But you bet that when pressure's a real thing, and when it starts to get pressure, you don't know how they're going to react. So that's going to be another situation we're going to go through as a group. Hopefully, as we, you said it just a second ago, that trajectory of improvement is never a straight line. It's not rarely, it's never a straight line. It's always, there's ups and downs. But like I've talked with a lot of our players, those downs, those tougher times, that's the opportunity to grow. It is. That's where you pinpoint the growth. It's not when we were 12-6 and rolling. It's when we went to St. Louis on a back-to-back and had a good first period, and then they took over the game. And then we went 2 nights later in Nashville, and they were on a run, and they're a playoff team. And then we went to Dallas, who was on a 7-game win streak, and we lost there. And then we went to Washington and lost there. To me, that was the punch in the nose that, whoa, we haven't arrived yet. Now all of a sudden we're 12-10. So when you look at that, how are we going to handle that? Well, we had to go through it. You can talk to Cole Sillinger about it as an 18-year-old or even a ton of our young players, but you have to go through it. And that's the patience part of it. And everybody loves patience now, and they love it in the summer. But when the season starts, patience goes out the window, and it's like, well, what's going on with your group? We've got some things we need to learn. We got to go through, and we went through a lot of it. And so that trajectory, it's generally like this. Now how we get to here, that's a bumpy road. It always is, and you can't fast track it. I said it in mine just a bit ago about there's no substitute for experience, and some guys handle it different than others. There's some surprises, and there's some guys it's going to take longer. I can't tell you who those guys are going to be, but as a staff, I know we're going to work to try and help those guys and grow them and get there as quick as we can, but it has to make sense for them too. So there's a road ahead, but I said it just with David, it's exciting.
Right, when you get together as a coaching staff to talk about changes for next season, you probably already have in some way, is the goals against the biggest issue that you'll try to correct this offseason?
Yeah, well, that's the one that stands out right away, right? And so here's what you always fight: is it personnel? Is it systematic? Is it you get challenges all the time from my general manager. We talked about early in the season, and that's part of his job, and that's us, and so that's what we have discussions about. We made some changes. Let's just go with the D zone. The year before, we were 27th in league in goals against, and near the bottom in all these important categories like passes to the slot and all these fancy analytics, right? And then we lose almost 2,000 games of experience in the back end. You lose Seth Jones, Savvy, Delzato. Delzato 700 plus games. I believe Savvy was 600 plus games. And now you have guys that are coming in. We have 10 defensemen coming in the lineup. I think we had 4 that were over 100 games of experience. Gavrikov had 124 games coming this year. I know he seems like he's 35, but he's not, right? He carries himself. He plays like it. Zach was our number one guy at 335 games coming into the season. And he's first time wearing a letter, first time being the number one defenseman, if you want to call it that. You have Kukin, who was in and out of our lineup, but he had 120-some games in 5 years. So you're averaging 28, you know what I mean? So what we need to do is we're going to look at all of it. I'm going to look at, because I look at all the teams. We look at their goals and what are they doing? Are they man-to-man? Are they zone? Are they shrinking going to a man-to-man? We go, that's our job. That's what we do. But you also got to go, that's the patience part, right? Is it the system? Do we need to make changes? Can these guys grow into the system? We made a change, not just a change, because we feel like the game is progressing in another way. The defense are so active in the zone. I don't know if there's a right or wrong about all these things. You know, is it personnel? Do we need to add some more experience back there? And, you know, Harry he had 200, little over 200 games, and he barely played, right? He's in the minors. And so when you start to peel it back, guys are playing 33 games. You know, Andrew Peak played 82 games this year. I would have lost that bet. I would have lost that bet. I would have. And that is a great thing to say, right? There's a guy, there's growth. There's a guy that, for me, puts himself in the conversation. That guy can play every day in the NHL. Where it shakes out, I don't know. Is he a top pairing D? We'll see. You know, if we get good enough, hopefully not. That means we're in a really good situation. So these are conversations, and I'm going to watch playoffs just like you guys are, and I'm going to watch the systems. I'm going to watch as a fan first, because I think the first 2 games it's just chaos on ice. To be honest with you, I love the start of it. It's just like a NASCAR race and a crash derby all in one, you know. But then it settles out, and then you start to see who rises to the top, and then we'll look at foundation and what they're doing and how they built their team, the size of these guys, the experience of these guys, you know. So there's a lot of factors that go into, are we going to work on our goals against? Yes. We scored. We got to keep them out. But there's a long process to get to that too, and what that's going to look like. And depending on how we build our team and what it looks like, it might be systematic change, it might be personnel based, but we're certainly going to look at that and try and address that 100%.
As you look back on Cole Sillinger's season, how does it compare to what you expected, or did you even have any expectations of what it would look like for him at 18 to be in the league a full year?
Yeah, he's at 18 years old, what he did is that's a pretty special year. You know, we joked about it early on, but I was actually very serious. I tried many times to get him out of here. I did. I said, I need to get you out of here, but he wouldn't go away. You know, he would not go away, this kid, and made our team. And if you talk to him, he had a lot of ups and downs too. It's a lot of peaks and valleys. And you know, when you talked about that trajectory curve, he's young, but he's one of the guys that we're very excited about, obviously. To finish the year, I think he played 79 games, 30-plus points, 16 goals. Man, if you would have told me at the beginning of the year or in Traverse City that that's where that kid's going to be, I don't know. I probably would have lost that bet too, you know. But then you get to know him. You know, you get to know Cole a little bit, and you get to know his maturity for an 18-year-old. You get to know his mindset. He's ahead of his years that way. Now, we're going to have to be patient with him too. You know, he's coming as a 19-year-old next year, and now there's expectations. That changes. This year was kind of a free roll. You know, a lot of first-year guys get the free roll. You know, it doesn't matter if you're first round or late first round, early. Everyone, well, it's his first year. Well, now he set a bar for himself. But what I like about Cole, and I think he has a very good understanding of himself, is his foundation is solid. I think he knows where it needs to be. I'm going to keep him to that foundation. I'm going to keep my thumb on that to make sure he knows his ability to impact a game may not just be, he might end up with 10 goals next year, but make huge strides in other areas, you know. So stats are a dangerous thing, but I think he's got the right mindset. I think he, you know, one of his last comments to me is that he's coming in with the same mindset to try and make the team next year. I like his chances right now, but I believe him. When he says those words, I believe him, and he's going to put the work in, and he's going to come with that mindset, and he's going to be a better player.
One more for Lars.
You've lost so many leaders, so many players with a lot of experience coming into this year, as you've kind of previously mentioned, which meant you had a whole new leadership group. I think you knew you had the right guys there, but still it was new for a lot of those guys, and even Boone moving up to being a captain for the first time. But just as you look back on this year, do you like the way that they grew into those roles? Because you talk about the way this team kept battling, the way that the comeback victories, the nice things they've all said about each other in the locker room. Do you like the way that that group has kind of shepherded them going forward?
Well, yeah, there was growth there, you know, and have they arrived as leaders? Have we arrived as coaches? Have we arrived? No, I think we're all growing, and that's the exciting part is to grow with a youthful team like this, and I'll say it again, there's tremendous people in that room. So as far as leaders and Zach, you know, we're always going to want more from Zach, you know, as far as you know, he almost had 50 points. He's playing through injuries, but it's the first time he's been a leader. It's the first time he's taken 27 plus minutes a night. He's the number one guy. So the exciting thing with him is I think there was a tremendous amount of growth, and there's a whole lot more for him to grow. And he's navigating through it too. Well, how do I do this as a number one guy? How do I do it as a leader? Bjorkstrand, you know, same thing. Wearing a lot of ups and downs and you know, career year and goals. Minus 33. So we got to bring that world together. But what I like about him is he's not satisfied with the year because he had 28 goals. You know, when I talk to him, yeah, that's fine, but we need to get better here, and there's things that we can do and focus. And me as a coach, I can help. You know, and so there's going to be a lot of growth there. But now he's had a year under his belt. What that feels like, what it was, his role in the room, what that's going to look like. Boone Jenner, tremendous year. You know, tremendous year, and we lose him at a very, very key time. You know, the poor guy, he's coming to me in tears saying, I can't do it anymore. How old are you, Portsy? I didn't expect that. Okay, sorry. Yes, but he cares. Tremendous amount. He cares, and it was killing him. He couldn't go play. So for growth, huge growth. Gus Nyquist, 82 games. Another guy, you know, he missed the whole season. Comes back, plays 82. Are you kidding me? And huge growth there. So our leaders, they help push that room through a lot of. There were some real tipping points in there where it could have gone bad, where the losing could have got out of control, where the practice habits could have got real lax, competitiveness could have gone out the window, and they didn't let it go. And for that, I'm so impressed. But I'm also excited about now they have a year under their belt. Now they know kind of the grind of it, what their role looks like in the room, and where I think they can get to and grow with this group. And it's exciting. It is.
Thanks, Lars.
Yep, good.
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
Jarmo, this season has been, by almost everyone's account, a successful season for you, or at least a season where you got a lot of good answers to questions you may have had. What does it become now? How much tougher does it get now to get from this level to the next step that you want to take, and what kind of challenges face you and Brad Larsen and his staff?
I think every step is going to be hard, and we got lots of steps to take before we can get close to why we're here, which is starting to play now and playing 4 rounds and lifting something heavy after that. So, but I think that we talked about retooling or reset last year at this time, and I think that we proved that we can turn this around quicker than calling it a rebuild, which is why we didn't. I thought there were a lot of positives. Obviously, you can't be happy not making the playoffs, but we felt that we were competitive and we were going to be close. And I think that in that sense, thinking that going into the season, we can be fairly satisfied that we took the right steps from a year ago to where we are now. And I think that we're going to take the next steps here fairly quickly as well, because there's going to be a lot of internal growth with the guys that we have, the age structure that we have with with our young, very talented players. They're going to get better. They're going to get pushed hard to get better, and we have the right people working with them to get better. So I'm excited about where the team's at, because like we said, we want to build this the right way so that we can compete to win the Stanley Cup.
Change is inevitable, but how do you make sure that the room stays, a lot of the players were talking about how this is the best room they've ever been in, and the strength of that. And I asked Lars about, are there more like-minded people now on this team as the core gotten larger? So when you make change, is there always that possibility that you lose the cohesiveness and the, whatever that is, the mojo that you have? Yeah, I think that's a big part of the player evaluation that we always have here, and I think it should be, because this is the ultimate team sport, I call it, because it truly needs the five-man unit every time they're on the ice, but not only that, but the 20 guys and the 25 guys that are in that room to be a true team. It doesn't matter if you have big stars, if they're not working together, you're not going to win anything. So a big part of the player evaluation is that does that guy fit in? If we're bringing somebody up from outside, how does he fit in with our group? And we try to evaluate it on three different levels. What kind of a hockey player, what kind of an athlete, and what kind of a teammate and human being. And those are all equally important parts of the evaluation. And we want to bring in good teammates. We want to bring in good people and good hockey players. So, yeah, it's something that we put a lot of emphasis in and a lot of work in the background to find out everything we can about the character.
Jarmo, last year, Patrick Laine had a season that pretty much everyone universally felt was not up to his standards. He comes in this year. Did you learn anything about Patrick Laine this year, and did that, if so, did that impact how you may feel about wanting to keep him here as part of this mix, part of maybe the core group leadership group here?
We've watched him for many years already, so it's not just the 2 years that he's been here, and I feel that we know him fairly well on those three levels that I just mentioned. So we've done our background work with him, knowing him as a hockey player. It's probably the easiest part, knowing him as an athlete and a human being. And teammate is harder, but I think we did a lot of that homework before he even got here, and obviously we know him a lot better now. It's amazing how much, even with these top athletes, best hockey players in the world that play in this league, what confidence means to him. And I think he was very low on confidence a year ago in that season for many different reasons. And this year, when the ball started rolling into the right direction and he got more and more confident, you could see what the other end of the potential is, and it is great. So I think he's expressed he wants to stay here. We've said that we want him to stay, and now it's just finding the common ground.
With Boone Jenner, I mean, he came in, obviously he becomes the captain, had just a fantastic season going before the injury. Going forward, what kind of concerns may there be with that injury in particular, and maybe just potentially managing, that situation that he can kind of play a little longer into the season potentially?
Well, the professional athletes, they do everything they can to prepare for an upcoming season. I think had we been in the playoff race, Boone would have been back a lot sooner than what it appears right now. We didn't need to rush him because we weren't going to make the playoffs, and we knew that while he was rehabbing. So now he's well on his way of preparing for the next season. He knows what he needs to do. We have the training staff here, the therapists that know what he needs to do to endure through a full season next year, and I have no doubts that he will. So that's their job. They know what they need to do, and they do it. And I wouldn't expect anything less from Boone Jenner, that's for sure. He's one of the hardworking guys we have in there.
You just at the World Under-18s, saw a lot of the top kids from this year's draft and next year's draft. How excited are you about those two drafts? And putting you on the spot a little bit, do you want Chicago's pick this year or next?
Yeah, I try not to worry about things that are not in our control. So we'll watch the lottery closely on the 10th, and we'll see what happens, and we'll make the pick, either two first-round picks this year or 2 next year. Both are good options.
How are these two drafts from what you've seen?
People try to evaluate the drafts. I'll say evaluate this year's draft 5 years from now, and evaluate next year's draft 6 years from now. So that's the answer that I always try to give, because we talk about it with our scouting staff that, well, it's not as good of a draft as we think. Well, let's make it a good one. And then 5 years from now, we'll see how good it was. And, obviously people have projections and stuff, but that's a tough business. I can tell you that, having done that for many, many years, that projecting how good the 17, 18-year-olds are going to be 5 years from now, that's, you might think it's not a great draft, but all of a sudden some guys develop totally differently than you thought, and they make it a good draft years later.
You spoke when you hired Lars about, you guys looked around, obviously, and in your eyes couldn't find someone that you liked more than the guy you already had in the room. But as you watched him go through it as a head coach, go through it the first time as kind of the guy where the buck stops there, were you impressed by the way he handled that? Did you like the way that this team seemed like it kept fighting? I mean, do you feel pretty good about that staff and that guy you have in place right there?
Yeah, and like you said, it's the staff, and I think he had a big part in that too. I think adding Pascal was a really important thing for us. I think he's done a great job with Lars being the associate coach. Under the circumstances, we had to make a change with Steve McCarthy coming in, and he's done a real good job as well. Jared Boll has done a little bit more this year with the coaching staff. Kenny McCudden is outstanding as a skills coach. And, we got the video guys there that make important decisions very quickly, with Dan Singleton and Aaron Agustidis. So there's a lot of people there that work their butts off, and Manny with the goalies, obviously. So it is about the staff mostly, but I think Lars has done an excellent job. We never had any doubt about his work ethic and the passion for the game, and those were big reasons why we hired him. There's no doubt that was going to be just like we projected. But it's a different job, obviously, having all the responsibility and pressure, if you want to call it, on your shoulders. And I think he's handled it very well. And he's been in the business for a long time. I said it last year that ever since I've gotten to know him, I've always felt like he's a head coach in the National Hockey League. I think he proved in the first year that he's going to be a good one, and probably going to have a long future in the business in the National Hockey League because of it. And and I think that just like on the player side, our coaching staff can grow too, and that's exciting.
You mentioned taking the next step, being in the playoffs next year. How do you make up a 25-point gap next season?
Well, first of all, I think that this was a bit of an extraordinary year where you put 25 points. I don't think there's ever been a year where eighth team made got over 100 points to make the playoffs. But we'll go about it game by game, and we'll start with training camp next year, and we expect everybody to have a great off season and get stronger and quicker and faster and more explosive and more experienced from having gone through what we went through this year. And so we'll be better on the individual level come training camp time, and we'll work at getting better as a team next year. And I think one of the things that we're probably going to talk about a lot this summer and do what we need to do to keep the puck out of our net better. We got scored on too much, and even though we scored more than we ever have, you don't want to get into those type of games where you have to win 5-4.
You see the construction around here and all that's going on. Is this a rebuild or a reset for all the facilities down here?
I think this facility is phenomenal. I think we needed it was time to get a little bit of a reset on the facilities as well. So we're halfway there already. The phase one's done, and I think everybody was extremely pleased with what we did with our locker room and the bathroom areas there with the recovery pools and all that. And I think it's going to be unbelievable once we get done with everything in the phase two. We can't wait. And I think players know the plans that we have. They've seen it. And, I just wish we could fast forward to training camp right now and have everything ready there, because it's going to be right up there with the best in the league. And we're going to obviously think it's the best, but everybody else will too. But I think we will be able to compare it to anybody's facility in any sport.
You made a signing today. I think someone, obviously you've known very well. People kind of followed a little bit in the KHL, but just how excited are you to see Crow come over here, and how do you think his game will translate to North America?
Yeah, it'll be great to see that. And we sometimes have to wait longer for the guys that had those long-term contracts in the KHL, and now he's finally coming, and he's a big right winger and can play both sides, right-handed shot, and he's got a lot of skill, and I think he plays with the pace too that is required in the National Hockey League. I think players overall or if coming from Europe usually have to go through a little bit of an adjustment period. We've seen that here many times with some of the European prospects that we have. So most likely he will have to too, but he he's played pro and been successful over there, and now he's going to get a new opportunity here to play in the best league in the world. So we're excited to have him, and we'll just go from there step by step, and he's going to be a good addition for us.
Quickly getting back to the facilities you were talking about, when that's all done, you talked about how you feel like, you guys will feel like it's the best in the league kind of thing. How much of an asset can that be if you're in free agency, say, and you're trying to attract somebody here?
It's not going to hurt you. I don't think anybody's going to come here just because of the locker room or facilities, but I think mostly what we want to do with it is that we take care of our own players that are already here to make sure that there's no excuses. They have the best facility. They can concentrate on the job. They can do their job to the best of their ability because the facilities are first class, and they can just concentrate on the job and get it done. So that's the main focus from our part. But it certainly won't hurt when you can show the facility to the people outside, and players that we may trade for, and they come in and they see the facility, and they're wide-eyed and say that this is the best I've ever seen. That's obviously a bonus too.
The other day we were talking to Elvis, and he basically mentioned that the cannon kind of bothered him early, not now. He's kind of past that thing. I'm wondering, after what happened last year, as an organization, did you guys have any kind of concerns about maybe him hearing that or anything like that? Was that ever discussed and talked about?
No, yesterday was the first time I ever heard of it. So, yeah.
Anything else? Thanks, Jarmo.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Recording stopped.